Hello, I'm Bob McCready, G0FGX, and as part of the process for the election of RSGB board directors, on your behalf, I'm going to put a few questions to the candidates so that before you cast your votes, you can find out a bit more about each candidate and what they may bring to the role. Now, as I ask the questions, we'll give each candidate in turn the chance to answer, and joining us via Zoom for this Q&A session are three candidates. They are Ben Lloyd, GW4BML, Stuart Bryant, G3YSX, and Nathan Nuttall, 2M0OCC. Thank you for joining us. So let's get underway with our first question. Could you each tell us, first of all, about how you got into amateur radio and which aspects you enjoy most?
So I got into amateur radio a long time ago when I was 12, and there was a YOTA event at my local scout group, and I went along to that. I was one of, I think, two scouts that were there, so I got a lot of time with the radio and understanding, the different aspects of what you could work and the different bands and stuff like that. So from there, I insisted in nagging my dad and said, I need an amateur radio license. So then I got licensed in 2007, got my intermediate in 2008, and then I've been an intermediate ever since. So I'm a very long running intermediate, to say the least. The main bits that I really enjoy amateur radio is you never know quite what's going to be on the band. So it's always interesting using different bands, seeing what countries you can work. The other bit that I really enjoy as well is doing other activities with it. So SOTA has been a big thing for me. Unfortunately, not currently while I work. I can't do as much as I would like. But when I was younger, I was under 18s champion for SOTA in 2008. So I did 40 hills in a year for that one. So I do really enjoy my SOTA when I can get out to do it. And then operating generally in portable. I've done numerous POTA with my local club, and anytime that I can just get out and enjoy radio and the great outdoors, especially during the nice summertime in Scotland, I'll take every opportunity possible. And then from there, as when I was younger as well, I encouraged even my mum to be licensed. So we're one of the rare families that my dad, my mum, and I are all licensed in the same family. So yeah, so that's how I kind of got into amateur radio, and I continue to try and do as much as I can today, even with work commitments.
Well, I got into amateur radio as a young child. There was a friend of mine in the village called Glyn, Golf Zero, Juliet Alpha India, and I always noticed the antennae he had above his house. So I called there one day as I was walking through the village and asked questions, and he explained about amateur radio to me. And since then, I've been a shortwave listener for many, many years. I used to go and visit him quite often at the weekends to see what he was doing when he used to make radios, make antennae, and talk to the world. And this really, really interested me. I have done a little bit with CB in the past as well. So when COVID hit, I decided to not be a shortwave listener anymore and take my exams, which I did. So within the year, I'd gained my full license. And what I like about the hobby is the aspects contesting. I am quite a big contester. I do a lot of SOTA summits on the air. I travel the world for that scheme. I've tried bunkers on the air. I make my own antennae. I haven't started making transceivers yet, but that's on my list to do. But I do like to try a broad range of the aspects of the amateur radio hobby.
So I got into amateur radio when I was really relatively young. My father was given some sample transistors by my uncle, who was professionally in the radio world. And we built a small transistor medium wave TRF. That was when I was about 10. Then I built a shortwave receiver for listening on shortwave. But then one of the key things that happened was I went to the local library, and there was a book about a young American radio ham. And I thought, gosh, this is something I really want to do. This was in the children's library at New Malden Public Library. So I thought, I really want to do this. But the really important step was there were two scout commissioners, the future G3YIC and the future G3YNP. Came to a scout meeting and said they wanted to set up what we would now call a maker sector. Wasn't called that then, this was too many years ago. But they recognized that some boys were in the Scouts, wanted to do things other than get very cold and wet on top of a mountain. So they had an idea. They would set up a mechanical workshop and an electronic and radio workshop. And everything went from there. We were actually a self-taught group. We taught ourselves how to get through the RAE. I passed the RAE at 14, 2 years to get the Morse, by which time I'd built my own radio station. I still like building things. I still like operating. Very big in high-end VHF contesting. I like making things. I've got a fully automated station at home. But I also like sort of serving the community. I've enjoyed my time doing work for the RSGB board over a number of years now. And I hope I can give more back to the community by establishing a strong and effective RSGB that serves the community.
Turning our attention now to the RSGB committees, because those committees and the honorary officers report to the board. So which ones would you like to be the board liaison for, bearing in mind your own amateur radio interests, which you've just told us about, and your skills?
Okay, well, as I mentioned to you before, I do SOTA summits on the air, which is climbing up mountains all over the world and calling CQ SOTA on your radio. It's a great scheme. So it's kind of aimed at all ages, but if you want to go adventurous, the youth. So I currently am the board liaison for youth, and so far I've put quite a few things in place. I'm working on a structure at the moment for country representatives to help grow the youth, and I also am a big believer in why reinvent the wheel, because there's a lot of stuff going on around the UK at the moment for youth. But I just don't think that the RSGB are involved in it all. So hence why I've put a structure in place to get the youth country representatives so we can go out there and support the events that great amateurs are doing in the area. And then also we are working on an outreach team, and I am leading the outreach team as we speak. And then this team will be to look at all different ages, but youth would be quite a major point. Schools, universities, scouts, cadets. So we're trying our best to get into these schemes and age groups to try our best to grow amateur radio members, not just on an RSGB perspective. It would be the wider perspective, a growth of amateur radio as a whole. So yeah, they're the two which I would like to be part of.
So traditionally, I've looked after the operating portfolio. I've done this jointly with someone else, with Len, over a number of years now. As chair, really, I should be focusing more on the strategy and getting the board aligned on delivering the strategy, working with the staff. And in fact, I spend a lot of time at the moment working with staff. So if I look after any groups out of choice, it will be the operating portfolio. But as chair, I tend to pick up all of the groups that are orphans. So if you look at the website, you'll see I look after a number of groups, such as Technical Forum, which is the Radcom review team. I look after EMF at the moment. The three contesting teams, where I believe I've got a good rapport with both the committees and the contest community. That's basically it. There's a few other sort of bits and pieces I look after, and I would continue, assuming I would continue on the board, and assuming I was to continue as chair. That is more or less how I would continue, particularly with the focus at the moment on delivering the strategy. And if you look at the report I will have written, or I did write, to summarize the committee reports, you'll see that strategy is an important part. Now we understand how to do strategy.
I think certainly on the board liaison, I think certainly some special interest groups would be good for me to interact with, especially that I'm actually on the committee for a couple of them. So GMDX, I'm one of the committee members for, so I already interact with that on a one monthly basis, and more obviously as we do a big convention in the April time for them. And I just enjoy how the special interest groups have different aspects of amateur radio you might never think of doing. And then, you've got a group. So I'm a member of the Work Tour Britain. I've done stuff with Raynet in the past. Any opportunity to learn more information, more skills is something that I enjoy, especially like with the convention and the lectures and things like that. So I think that's something that I can take the special interest groups and help liaise with them with the board and making sure that they're looked after to the best of their ability. I also think some of the committees that I'm involved in a lot of the online amateur radio groups these days. So I think with my mix of online, I think there's certain committees that I might be able to help to better promote them online wise and develop other things for them. So I'll probably like to liaise with the contest committee and not necessarily change up the contest by any means because they do a wonderful job as they currently do, but maybe looking at how can we help them to make their lives easier and things like that.
The RSGB board has announced 4 strategic priorities. So could you now choose one of those and share one idea for how it could be implemented and how you would lead it?
Well, so for a start, I've been involved in all 4 of them. In fact, the big insight that the board had this year was instead of focusing on 8 strategies, which is where we were and where we were finding it very difficult to engage in all of them, we picked 3 of the original set and added one. So the 3 we picked were growing amateur radio, that's to say, growing the size of the pie, growing the fraction of radio amateurs that were members of the RSGB. Then Spectrum. Spectrum comes with its friend licensing, and that's been a really important thing that we've done this last year. You'll see not only have we worked with Ofcom over the changes that they've put in place, but in particular, we've also done a lot of spectrum defense work this year. So 23 SEMS was really, really shaky. It didn't look like we were going to keep 23 SEMS at all, but we supported the team that spent a lot of time negotiating for us to keep 23 SEMS. I think there was a threat to 10 meters. There certainly is still a threat to the weak signal part of 6 meters because there's a satellite going up on 45 megs with quite a broad bandwidth, a water surveillance satellite. So there's plenty of work to do in that. But in particular, with the license part of Spectrum, to find ways of taking advantage of the new liberalization that's happened. So which ones? Oh, and the other one is finance. Finance wasn't a strategy item per se, but we decided that strategy was that financial strategy was important, and we're on a path to get back to break even, following some really quite severe changes in the environment financial changes in the environment in which we live and operate. But we think we are projected to be back on track with that fairly soon.
So the one I actually want to choose is the financial stability of the society. I think the society do a good job with the current resources they have, but I think there's ways that they can reduce the amount of stuff they have while keeping the same amount of resources to every bit aspect of the RSGB. And I think if we can look at different things within HQ, within the regional team, and look at how can we do the same thing, but with less resources, but still making sure that, we're financially take our obligations correctly without overspending. So is there something where maybe we host it on 3 platforms currently, and we can put that down to 1 platform for hosting or something like that, and that can be a saving, but we're still being able to actually produce the services that we could do. The other thing I would like to do with that financial stability as well is if we can cut down some of the excess on certain hosting or services or anything like that, can we use that other resources to generate new services while still being financially responsible and making sure that the society comes back to being in the black, and making sure that they make a, doesn't have to be a huge profit, but enough of a profit that we're back to financial stability.
Well, again, outreach. So growth is a strategic priority. So that's what the outreach team will look at. And as I said, I will be leading that team. So it will be a matter of finding out there, doing research on scouting opportunities, cadet opportunities, schools, universities, sorting out after school clubs, telling people and youngsters what amateur radio is, the exciting parts, the attracting parts of the hobby, to get them to do their foundation license. And also, you can recruit members, but a key thing is to retain them. In my opinion, I think retaining the members is the most important thing. So you kind of need to find out what the members enjoy and just let them do it, or find out what the non-members would enjoy and let them have a play.
This is a very interesting question for the RSGB and the future of the Society. Why do you think it's important that people support and belong to the National Society?
I think it's very important. Amateur radio and as a whole is under threat commercially a lot of the time. And without the support of the National Society, it makes it harder for them to go to Ofcom, ITU and say, we need this spectrum. So I think if everybody belonged to the National Society, and even if they volunteer for 2 hours a week or help out here and there, it'll make a massive difference to what Ofcom might be able to give us, and it'll keep the commercial aspect of the spectrum maybe further away for longer. I'm not saying, the society could stop everything tomorrow. That's not how it's going to work. But I certainly think that if people belong, have a voice it, and we can show that to the Ofcom and the other authorities, that we could protect our hobby and our spectrum for a lot longer. And that's key. And I think, to belong to the society and help, shape the next generation of amateurs, because what the society does now and what it can convince Ofcom to do, I mean, with the current rule changes that just happened, if we could convince more in future, that could change the face of the hobby. And I think everybody, if possible, could be a member of the RSGB and help shape that, and they'd be a part of it and feel like that they belong to a family as sorts. And we don't always agree, but as a family, we can certainly help make sure the hobby's successful for the next 100 years. And I think that's certainly why people should look to join the RSGB.
I believe one of the main things is for Ofcom. We liaise with Ofcom on a regular basis, and without having Ofcom and the spectrum, we wouldn't be here today talking on our radios. So it is very, very important for all members to really, really, really support the RSGB in that aspect, because if they don't, unfortunately, that's where amateur radio will slowly go, and 100% that is not what we want.
Well, for a start, the National Society provides many of the services, or rather, it puts in place many services that members really take for granted. Preservation of spectrum, negotiating with the regulator, produces the best UK amateur radio magazine. It coordinates the repeater network and the beacon network and the gateway network. It encourages people to take part in construction, and I think you understand construction is an important part of amateur radio. Together we can be much stronger. Together we can work on the strategic items. In particular, together we will work better to increase the number of people in amateur radio. We will work better to encourage people to to participate, to take part in amateur radio. Contests, for example, something like 5% of the RSGB membership take part in contests. They're organized by the National Society, and it takes the resources of a national society to organize I think it's something like 200 to 250 contests that we run a year. Some people like contests, some people don't, but a lot of people do like them. And in this modern world where people need a focus to do something, they provide a focus for many people to get on the air once a month or once a week, depending on what they participate in. They also provide a good incentive to get out at the weekend with your friends in the countryside on top of a hill and understand just how amateur radio works from a good site. Now, of course, there are the social activities as well, which is another variant of the same thing. The National Society is a cornerstone of amateur radio in this country. And by having a strong society, I think we have a much stronger amateur radio movement in the United Kingdom.
Ofcom recently released some changes to the amateur radio licence. So what do you think are the main opportunities for amateur radio in those new Ofcom licensing changes?
Yeah, I really think that this is going to benefit a lot of people. I won't discuss in great detail because there's quite a few changes. The power is going to be a result for some stations. But the main thing to attract non-members is going to be the talking, a little bit more flexibility of call signs and talking on air. So you can supervise somebody talking on the radio rather than just sending a message over the airways. And in my opinion, people can have a go at doing amateur radio a little bit more freely, loosely, let's just say. And I think that way they will enjoy the hobby more and maybe become a member and take their license.
Right. The most important one is the supervised operation by non-licensed people. All the rest are sort of internal, right? There are new things that we can do. They're allowing us to run more power. They are allowing us to run new technologies, etc. But the most important one for amateur radio, I believe, is allowing other people to actually use the radio station as if they were a licensed operator, but under the care and supervision of someone who is licensed and can make sure that the operation is safe and legal. And the reason for this is it's a bit like learning to fly. The way the flight schools work is they don't sort of say, look, there's an aeroplane up there. Look, you stand here, you can watch me fly it. They say, sit in the right-hand seat. I'm going to take it off. There are the controls. Now you move it around the sky. You see what it's like to fly it, and you get addicted. Same with driving a car. I mean, you don't learn to drive a car. Get interested in driving a car. I suppose you might drive a car to go somewhere, but you still do that by sort of sitting there and getting hands-on experience. So I think we need to move away from the days of the exhibition stations where you go along and you see the backs of a number of operators and you're not quite sure what they're doing, to a world where when you turn up to an exhibition station, you're encouraged to sit in the driving seat and have a go, whether that's by voice or whether that's playing FT8, which I still think is the best video game in town. And I'm looking forward to seeing if I can get my grandsons interested in playing this new type of video game. How long will it take you to work 20 countries? How long will it take you to work 100 countries? So I think the supervised operation is the most important change. It's the one on which we can anchor our growth strategy, the growth in the number of people doing amateur radio. Um, and yeah, that's by far and away the most important new thing from the strategic point of view of amateur radio in this country.
I think in the new Ofcom license changes, there's plenty of opportunities. We've massively opened what intermediate licenses can do. And that means that more people can try more things, develop more systems. From we could have repeater mesh networks with other data modes now, especially with the data stations coming in. I think one of the main ones, though, it's going to be really good, is that you'll be able to let a non-licensed person have a go. And that's the thing, clincher. It was hard back when the other rules were the other way that, you could show them, but you couldn't really say to them, have a go. And not all licensees could do that either. Where now it doesn't matter if you're at a public event and you've got a radio and they go, oh, what's that? And I go, well, we're doing this and this and this. Do you want to have a go? And that will make a big difference because it will get them excited, it will get them intrigued. They'll feel like, it's not something we're gatekeeping anymore. It's available to everybody. It'll be more open. And I just think in general, Ofcom have opened them rules and made life easier and simpler for everybody so that we can try multiple things and we're not worrying, oh, is this within this certain rule, within this certain rule, within this certain rule? It's a lot simpler now. It's going, okay, am I an intermediate license? Yeah, I can do anything repeater under 5 watts. It doesn't really matter. Let's see what we can do and what we can create that's unusual that, people will get excited about. And that's what we want in the hobby is people excited to try new things, develop new technologies. I mean, FT8, for example, came out of that. Now, with all these new open rules, what else could be developed that's not currently wasn't currently available under the old rules? So there's plenty of aspects that I think that will make a massive difference, and it'll certainly, I think, galvanize the current crop of amateurs, but also help new amateurs come into the hobby as well.
And for our final question, I'd like each of you to look into your crystal ball and tell me, how do you see amateur radio developing over the next 5 years?
There's going to be a lot more technologies, right? You only have to see what's happening in the computer industry. No one in their right mind would bet against the computer industry. So I think we're going to see a lot more application of artificial intelligence. In fact, when I worked for a large American company, there was someone who I was mentoring, a young engineer, and I said to him, and he was interested in model flying, he was interested in sort of radio, but he wasn't a radio amateur. And I said to him, so what would it take to get you into amateur radio? He said, well, I'm not interested in the competitions as you do them, but I would be interested in a competition where my computer beats your computer at working stations. He then went on to work for Google, I think it was, one of the big AI projects. So I can see all sorts of applications for AI. I think we're going to see voice recognition versions of Skimmer. I think we're going to see computer-to-computer contests. We're going to see machine learning and particularly large language models building code. So, for example, instead of learning the minutiae of C or Python, I know that you can say, hey, ChatGTP or hey, Bard, give me a program that does this. And then you can treat the specification as the construction and the actual code as a type of sort of machine code from a compiler where you just plug it in and go along. So there's going to be lots and lots of new technology here. On the other hand, I'm hoping to see many, many more people who just want to operate in the hobby. Particularly people encouraged by the new facilities, people who might want to put on a repeater, for example, for a 4x4 event, people who might want to put on a repeater for their community. I've often thought there should be club repeaters put up so that other people could join in on club nets who can't necessarily receive the stations directly. So the new license is going to have really important benefits. I think it's up to us to drive it, and no one would ever bet against the IT industry.
It's kind of leading on from the Ofcom question, but basically, I think with the new rules open, I think There's going to be new systems developed that are very different to what we currently have. I think there'll be a lot of hybrid mesh networks with lots of data traffic that they'll do new modes with different things. I mean, currently there's a resurgence of Packet, and I think there'll be a lot of new softwares developed to use that tool to, send different messages or do different things where you could maybe interact with something, further away, or could be repeater links for other information as well. So I think there's a lot on the data side that's going to change. I think the airborne rules will make a huge difference as well. I think you'll see a lot more smaller transmitters up in the air that people try and get distances without having to be on hills. And basically, I think there'll be a lot of things where other hobbies will interlink with it a lot more than what it currently does. And I think that's where we're heading in the next 5 years, for sure. And I mean, don't get me wrong, everything that what the current amateurs do under the old rules will still be there, but I think there'll be this resurgence of maker slash amateur radio where there'll be a lot more difference when it comes to data, packet, software, and other hobbies integrated with amateur radio more than they currently are.
I would like to, Bob, see the amateur radio developing. We keep growing. We grow more members. It's certainly a popular hobby, but I think promoting the schemes which are attractive will help grow amateur radio over the next 5 years. And I believe visiting clubs, doing presentations, doing talks, telling people, members, what the RSGB are, what they do, will certainly help. And since I've been on the board, I was co-opted last July 2023. I've been trying my best to visit as many clubs as I can with our club secretary, Stephen Purser, and we found it to be a great success. We can give presentations out on the RSGB, which Stephen does, and I do a presentation on adventurous radio, contesting, and a few more aspects. And it really works. The clubs get to ask questions, we answer them, and everyone's happy. So yeah, that's what I would like to see more of over the next 5 years.
Thank you, Ben Lloyd, GW4BML, Stuart Bryant, G3YSX, and Nathan Nuttall, 2M0OCC, for taking part in our Zoom Q&A, and hopefully that will help all of you in deciding where to cast your votes in this year's elections for the RSGB Board Directors.